So we're at a major turning point in the pandemic. What can we expect from businesses once the pandemic passes? Well, sit back and relax. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about that. Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel, your go-to place for building your dream career and achieving your highest potential. I'm Allie, and today we have another segment of Q&A where I answer one of your questions on anything related to career, work, or leadership. If you have a question for me, then make sure you leave it in the comment box down below, and maybe it'll be featured on our next segment of Q&A. Otherwise, let's get started. BioProf writes, Hey Allie, what practices adopted during COVID do you think businesses are going to keep? Hey BioProf, that is an interesting question. I haven't gotten a chance to think about that, funny enough. Things have just gone by so quickly the past year and a half. I actually haven't thought about what would happen once this ends. If many of you can relate to this, let me know in the comments below. I'm glad you asked this because now it actually got me to think about it, and so I spent a lot of time seeing what everybody else was thinking too, and it seems like we're all in the same boat about what we think is going to happen. So I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 work trends that I think are going to stay. These are just predictions. I'm not positive at all about any of these because when it comes to situations like this, like the pandemic, honestly, society can be a little unpredictable, so who knows, we might just return back to normal as if this never happened. But nonetheless, I'm curious to see what happens, and here's what I think is likely to stay. For my first work trend, what I really think is going to stay is using different work arrangements. COVID forced us to all go remote, and so now companies have adopted all the technologies needed to work at home. And so I do think moving forward that employees are going to be allowed to pick when they come into the office and possibly reduce their days from 5 days to maybe 2 or 3. Now, do I think we're going to go fully remote like we used to? No. I think you're still going to have to come into work, just not as often. And if you do end up being a remote worker, it's probably because you're tenured, so you've been with the company for a while, or you have a unique skill set and the company is willing to hire you even though you aren't at that exact location. That's when I think remote's going to become an actual option. But for the most part, I do think you're going to have a flex option. As for the second work trend, I do think we're going to continue to see some changes to virtual offices. So a virtual office is exactly what it means. Everything's been adopted through a technology so that we could do it at home or do it at a separate location from the office space. So I do think we're going to continue to see those technologies used. I do think that especially if we bought a license, anywhere between a 1, 3, 5 year license, you are going to see your companies taking advantage of that. So at least for the next couple of years, you are going to see us utilizing virtual offices more. So if there's any programs that you liked or didn't like, well, guess what? They're probably here to stay for at least a couple more years. And that is more than enough time for companies to revamp those technologies and really maximize the full potential. So there's a good chance that it's going to stay. So get used to using the computer. A lot of those things are probably not going to change. Next, I do think we're going to see some changes in recruitment and hiring. Namely, because we're going online, recruiters don't have to be sent to different locations to have to mingle with possible candidates. Now all of that can be done online, so you're going to see virtual fairs becoming more of a popular thing. On top of that, hiring decisions are going to have some other requirements involved, namely whether or not you can use the technologies that we've now adapted. In the past, you might have seen that you were required to have a knowledge base with Microsoft Word or any of those type of programs. I can guarantee you now that that's going to grow. You're going to have to know other technologies and how to use other programs if you want to get hired. And because all of society had to adapt at the same time, it's going to be more competitive. And so just saying that you can adapt quickly and learn might not cut it anymore. You might have to come in already knowing this. And so if you're looking for a job, be prepared that you might have to spruce up your resume and make sure you're familiar with the programs the companies want you to utilize. As for my next one, and this one's a little bit of a doozy, I know some of you are not going to like this, but I do think you're going to see companies utilizing employee monitoring programs more. This is basically a computer program to detect how much your employees are working. What are they doing with their time? What sites do they visit? When do they clock in or start working on the computer? Those sorts of things are going to start being detected more, And as time passes, those companies are going to start improving their technologies even further. And so do expect that if you're getting away with some cheap trick or something like that, it's not going to work after a certain point. Companies are going to find out. So be aware that these systems are here to stay to track performance, especially if we're starting to go online and virtual. That is going to stay. So just be careful about that. And for those of you managers who heavily rely on that, make sure you're careful about that because there are some ethical concerns about how you use that data. So do know it's here to stay, even though there are some concerns moving forward by adopting this practice. As for my last work trend, I do think we're going to start seeing changes in how we network in the office. If we're starting to go virtual, if more and more employees are going to have the option to work at home more often, that means we're not going to have much time to build relationships with our coworkers. Companies, and more particularly managers, are going to have to get creative with how you spend time with each other. And I'm just not talking about meetings, I'm talking about office parties, holiday dinners. You have to be accommodating now because some people might not be working in the same location. So you have to make sure it's an option that everyone can participate in. And so more likely than not, this is going to go virtual as well. And managers are going to be experimenting with different ideas that you can do online. I know for one of my friends, they had a box of cookies or it was donuts, one of the two, were sent to them and they actually just had a brunch on the computer and just talked and caught up. So just know that that's coming, that they're going to play with how to build relationships amongst coworkers. Some of it's going to work, some of it's not going to work. Just make sure you're vocal about the stuff that does work so that way companies know to continue doing it. And there you have it, my 5 projected work trends that may or may not happen post COVID-19. Thank you for asking that question because I actually had not thought about it, but once I did, it was a lot of fun doing the research on this. It was great to see what people were predicting once this all passes and subsides. So thank you, really, thank you for asking that question. It was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to open up to you all. What do you think is going to happen? Place your predictions down below so that way a couple years we can come back and see if we're actually right. And this is a topic that really interested you. Then make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's video because I'm actually going to be talking about whether or not remote work is good for us. Are we actually better performers when we work at home? You don't want to miss it, so make sure you watch it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified of my latest videos. And make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter where I reveal content not shared on my channel. Otherwise, this has been a fun video today. Thank you for asking that question. Otherwise, until we meet again, everyone, take it easy. Bye.